Very lovely morning. Welcome to Power Talk right here on Power FM Livingstone. I am your host, Phyllis Kawana, and it is indeed a very lovely Thursday, 21st day in the month of April 2021. I do have Mr. Major Bota from Response Network, who is the IT specialist, as well as Assistant Sponsorship Officer, and Miss Makazo Mangala, the Communications Officer. So they are here with me in the studio this morning, and we are going to be looking at a very interesting topic, which is safeguarding the girl child. But of course, before we get to that, remember, if you want to interact, you want to ask a question probably on what we're going to be talking about, you can always feel free to come through on 0960-218-900 as well as 0955-596-266. Good morning and welcome to Power FM.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. It's actually good to have you here this morning.
It's super great to be here as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we're looking at a very interesting topic today, which is safeguarding the girl child. But then before we get down to it, okay, in case there may be a listener out there who isn't really sure about what Response Network is all about, what it is, and all of that. So kindly, just, give us a brief about Response Network. What is it?
Okay, well, Response Network is a non-governmental organization. It was started in 2005. And in Livingstone, we run a sponsorship program where we currently have 645 girls in school. We also run a tertiary program as well as skills training component under the sponsorship program. Okay. And in the districts of Zimba, Kazungola, and Kalomo, we run self-help activities where we basically teach communities how to start up income-generating activities and clubs utilizing their own locally available resources, because we don't believe in handouts. Okay. So we believe in giving knowledge so that they can build on that and get themselves out of poverty and better their livelihoods. And we also build community schools. We have so far built 75 community schools in those 3 districts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Very impressive. And so would you say Response Network is, does it cater for everybody, or it just caters for a certain group of people in society?
I feel that we try to really reach the most vulnerable people, especially not just the sponsorship program, obviously, but also in the rural communities, because we reach out to the women, young girls, and people with disabilities, because we believe those are the most vulnerable members of society.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you identify these people, like especially the most vulnerable? Do you go out there to look for them, or maybe they come to your offices?
Right. Well, we generally go into a community and do what we call baseline.
Okay.
So then this baseline is where we ascertain what needs a community have the most. Mm-hmm. That's when we get to see the target demographics and how we can then go forth and help. After that, we have something called the GOP, which is Goal-Oriented Project Planning, where we now see which areas we can come in and help the community with, which is either community schools, sports clubs, skills training, adult literacy, etc. So that's generally how we see the needs of a community.
Okay, well, very interesting indeed. If you didn't know, or you were not so sure what Response Network is all about, I think you have an idea of what it is. So now getting back to what we're talking about today, being safeguarding the girl child. The first question would be, and this one would probably go to Mr. Major Bota here, does the girl child need extra protection in today's society? And if so, why?
First of all, I think what is important is to understand that who a child is. Mm-hmm. And when we get a much more broader understanding of who a child is, then we can then contextualize what protection or what extra protection the child needs. Mm-hmm. And according to our laws, we define a child to be anyone who is below the age of 18 is considered a child. And when we say, does a girl child need extra protection? Allow me to sort of, I think, maybe get the attention to just basically a child. Because I think this goes for both boys and girls
Exactly,
in a way.
yeah.
So yes, the child needs protection, and I feel personally to say this is something that is very, very much important. Let's talk today when we talk about maybe exposure to illicit content via social media platforms and websites. This is something that I feel as a nation and as parents, we fail to control, and we don't have control over it. And so because they are exposed to wrong information via social media, it then creates this gap between the parent and the child, because then the child is following or idolizing people that are not living maybe according to how a child should be living.
Yeah.
We have a lot of teenagers today that are on social media platforms, and so many are creating out of social media personalities role models, which shouldn't be the case. And this, of course, only happens because it's either we don't have a role model in the community that the children can then follow after, or there is no voice in the community where this child is coming from. And so because there's no one who is speaking anything that the child can relate with, and something that the child can buy into as an ideology of how life should be, the child then tends to go for the wrong information that they get across when they are on social media platforms. And then if you look at the makeup of our social media platforms, or maybe just generally as society, we would say we seem to be embracing day by day immoral activities, and this, they are becoming a norm, they are becoming part of life. And so sometimes when maybe an older person tries to control or to guide the younger one to say this is how you should do things and this is how you should live life, it feels a bit more outdated, to a point where I feel some will even say, no, or something like that.
Yeah.
But in the actual sense, the content that the child then exposes themselves to is not content that builds them. This is content that goes then to even destroy them more than it builds them. And so yes, indeed, the child needs that extra protection from us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the challenges that young girls face, and how do you begin to address them as Response Network?
I think in a way, I would say as an organization, we strive and we are proud of the 600 plus children that we are supporting when it comes to education. And what we have done to counter the misleading information that is out there in the society is we are coming up with programs that are aimed at giving or providing this child a mentorship space, because we have actually realized to say parents are not talking to children anymore because they are busy looking for money and looking for what is the next thing that they're going to be eating for supper. And so because of that has created a gap where we can say the conversation that would happen between the parent and the child, that conversation is not there, and so the guidance is not there. And so in order for us to ensure that the child that we are supporting with education requirements, because they are, of course, vulnerable, and they need that support. We want to go an extra mile.
Okay.
And just have mentorship programs that are going to be aimed at having this child understand to say, look, you might come from a vulnerable home or a vulnerable family, but you're not one who is supposed to pride yourself in vulnerability and then not become so creative with your life, because the reason why we send them to school forth is to get them the education that they need for them to be productive and just better their lives and the lives of their loved ones. And so these are supposed to be our agents of change. And so a mentorship program is designed for us to coach these young girls, just so that we begin to talk to them about various life issues and life skills, and just get to position them in a much more better way than they currently are in. Because the realization is, when we speak as an organization that is helping the child out, the chances that the child will listen and do are very high, as compared to when the parent who is doing nothing for the child, and the child feels very much out of touch with the parent. When they speak, the child might even say, after all, there is nothing that you do for me. You get, so because of the control or the respect that the child has given us, we want to use that to coach them into better living. And I think this is something that I believe that so many other organizations try to do when they take these programs into schools and draw up programs for community members that are engaging and are built around sensitization. This is why those programs are important, because then today, if we go to social media platforms, for example, I will keep on going back and forth, because when we go to social media platforms, how many young people follow pages or follow channels that communicate the right information? How many young people today are more likely to follow, for example, a page that is run by Power FM? And how many are likely to follow a page that is run by someone, a thief somewhere in the middle of the bush, that thinks stealing is the coolest thing? And because we are looking at it, we are laughing. It sounds like, you know what, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But in the actual sense, there's a young person out there that doesn't have the information to say stealing is wrong. And so we are working on the assumption to say, oh, they already know because they have access to social media. But then we don't know what content they are accessing on social media. And so this is why when programs that are built around mentorships or sensitizations in town, our best bet should be, we should be willing to listen and to give a listening ear, because that's where I think most of the challenges that a young person faces today emanate from. Lack of information. As a nation, we can say, yes, we have a lot of platforms where information is being given out, but the question still comes back: how many people are accessing those channels? Just like maybe, for example, we might say, how many people really understand how the court systems operate? And yet we have so many courts, but if you ask many of us in the communities today, we don't even know who and where do we start from. We don't know. And yet information is there, but no one wants to access it. Not until something bad happens. That's when we get interested. And so there is that divide. And that's the biggest challenge that young people have today. Information is there, yes, but for them to now filter through that batch of information to just get what is necessary and important to them is where the trick part is.
All right. Now, you actually mentioned about, you coming up with programs. What kind of programs do you come up with for the girls?
We have currently we are doing, or we've, as an organization, so to say, I think from 2019 up to last year, we are having clubs in schools, both in Livingstone and Kazungula, where we were talking adolescent sexual reproductive health and rights. Now, get us right. When we talk about rights, many people love to concentrate on the rights aspect, and very few people talk about the responsibilities that come with rights. So let's say, for example, I'm a student and I've been educated by this organization ABCD that has said I have the right to education. It's my right. I have every right to go and claim it. And so when I claim that right, what is my responsibility towards that particular right? Just like we would say, I have the right to life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have the right to life. But what is my responsibility to help me fulfill that particular right? And that is where I think most times we have a gap, because then not so many of us are talking about responsibilities. Most of us are talking about rights, which is right, which is good. But then what is my responsibility towards me fulfilling or meeting that right? Because it's not enough for me to know that I have the right to life. It's not enough for me to know that I have the right to education. Yes, I have the right to education, I have the right to life. So what? It is now my responsibility to make sure that when I go to class, I learn. I don't miss school. Otherwise, I might have the right to education and then miss school the entire year. And then by the end of the day, I have deprived myself of the right of education. It's not because someone never paid. It's not because I didn't have money. It's because I didn't do my responsibility very well. That's why I'm uneducated. Just like if I have the right to life, that does not give me the They don't care about rights. For them, it's about the money. How much are you having in your pocket? So it's 24 hours. I have the right to life. They won't say, you have the right to life. For them, they'll just look at the money and the benefits that they will get out of me. And so when I'm attacked at 24, my right has been violated. But what is my responsibility towards me upholding my right to life? It's my responsibility to make sure that I'm safe at all times, if I'm moving at night or if I'm moving during the day. I think in the recent days, we've had a few incidences where we, here in this city, in the great city of Livingstone, we call them junks.
Junkies, yes.
Yes, those junkies that we meet in our society. These are young boys. Yeah. These are young boys, and if you do your research very well, you discover to say they're probably dropouts, grade 9 dropouts, and most of them will say they never finished school because they didn't have money or there was no one to pay for them. But now government has paid for them. So why are they not going back to school? That's because probably they have seen something. They are making a bit of money from stealing people's property and grabbing, but then it's not right. And so young people have to be taught. Because then I was having conversations some time back in 2019 in the villages, and I was having a group meeting with some parents from the rurals, and they said, we can't discipline our children anymore because every time that the child comes up and you tell them something to do, they'll say, I have rights to choose, I have this right, I have that right. And so parents don't feel like they have control anymore. And when a parent gets to have that kind of feeling, then how are they supposed to safeguard and how are they supposed to protect their child? Because then the child has already said, I have full reins over myself. And this is someone who is below the age of 18. So to an extent, we would say then if we are talking child safeguarding, the parents must also be involved. Have we provided ways by which we can protect the child in the modern day, where human rights are absolutely important and we talk about them? Have we provided means and ways by which parents that don't really understand human rights, have we given them a solution to how they can protect this child against themselves? Because believe me, I have the freedom of movement and I'm being kept. Daddy has a curfew. He says you can't be here after 22. I have the right, yes, but then that right is supposed to be protected by the parent. The parent is the number one custodian in that home. And so if the parent has got no voice in my life, they can't say anything that I can listen to, then how are they supposed to protect me? This is where you get parents that will just say, you know what, we give up. Because we can't beat him, he's going to sue us. The next thing we'll find us, we are in a police station explaining why we beat the child. They'll give us a call out. So there are those issues. So recognize that times have changed. So there is that much. Otherwise, for as long as we are not providing simple situations such as just ways of parenting in the modern day, our parents used to beat us. It was fun for them. It was fun for them. It was okay. I mean, we didn't know about our rights. Now this generation knows about rights. Now we have to make a run for our money. So, so then on the other hand, when you look at the homes where our children are coming from, these girl children, or even the boy child, but let me concentrate on the boy child.
The girl child, yeah.
Yes, the girl child. Here is a young man, I think in a certain community, they call them pilators. Here is a certain young man. He's a pilator. Loves the uniform for this young school girl and says, I want to be taking you to school every day, so that you don't have to walk. Then the child is coming from a poverty-stricken home. They barely eat.
Yeah.
The first thing that she'll consider is, this is a way out. So Wallace, the young man, has just said, I will be dropping off at school. She's now thinking, probably this would be a good man to get married to. Why? She's seeing an escape route. This is a good way out. How can I move out of my parents' home after I've got the rights? This is where it's important. And so the children now tend to get into activities that they shouldn't be getting into at an early age. I think if you follow statistics very well, you discover to say, I think that was more than 23,000. And you have children that are getting pregnant whilst in school. And so that on its own tells you something to say, look, there's something that's missing, and that is the parent. The parent is out of the bracket, because if the child is meant to understand, to say, look, yes, we might not have everything, but we are all working towards it. we should be grateful that we have something every day that we can eat, even if it's delele every time. I think that's something that we are built into.
True.
We were told, oh, we can't afford chicken, not this Christmas, but we are going to cook nshima for you, and we'll eat that nshima during Christmas, no matter how, but we'll eat it. It was not nice. There are times when we used to cry for new clothes, for us. We never even had birthday celebrations. But now, because times have changed, children want their birthday to be celebrated, and having maybe a vehicle is now a must, it is a must, I think. In the modern day, driving is just that essential. But that aside, you discovered the poverty is in play. So we can't even give you money for break. What do the children resort to? The only thing that they know how, the piratas. And of course, the pirata will give gifts to them, give lifts to them, all things rosy, but then there'll always come that one time when he demands for something that the child can't give, because the child is not working, and so the girl child has got no other thing or no other item or idea that they can give, and they'll just talk this girl child and lure her down. And this is something that really hurts, because then over time, because of the gifts, this young adult or this adult person knew exactly what they wanted from the girl child.
Yeah.
And yet they were never bold enough to tell the girl child what they are looking for. Instead, they had to go the longer route, buy gifts that a child they knew to say, this child will never be able to pay me back. And in a way, that then makes the young girl have no power. I remember whilst we were doing a project in 2020, we used to tell young girls to say, look, whoever has the money has the power. Especially when you look at the fabric of society today, the one who has the money has the power. Because the girl child in that scenario, how can they say no? They don't have the money and they need it. They are friends that they have conversations with. So there is a whole lot of issues. And this is why when we come up with solutions, I think as a community and as a society, let's consider, or let's think of ways by which we can empower young people. Beyond just the general empowerment, how can we empower these young people? Because then it's important. If we can empower them at a younger age, if families can begin to invest in their children's dreams at a young age or at a tender age, I think some of these abuses that take place can be avoided and evaded. Because, it's just too much. And it hurts to I come from a very, 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 very big community, and I was disappointed to learn that in almost an entire community, you have a young group of girls that are all pregnant, and these are, you can see their smiling faces and everything. They are going to school, they are in uniform, yes, but we could have prevented the pregnancies. We could have prevented the pregnancies in the first place. And then here you have young children, young mothers, not married. Probably the people that even made them pregnant are not even going to marry them. And in the long run, we have single mothers. And that is what hurts the most, because then these are young people full of dream, full of ambition, and they have so much ability. But then, I mean, a child is an extra responsibility. And so, oh gosh.
No, that was a lengthy, what would I say, message, or I should call it a talk.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just give you a very short break. Just drink some water as I talk to Miss Makazo here. You are the communications officer at Response Network. So tell us, what is your role, to ensure the safety of the girl child?
Okay. As an organization who really firsthand works with the girl child, and more specifically the vulnerable girl child, we see the trials and tribulations that girls go through. And I actually wanted to touch a bit on Major. He made some very good points. I was looking for where to cut in, but I was failing to find my cut in point. So I think I can just address those two little key points that I got from what he had explained.
Please do.
I feel like when he brought up, especially the aspect of social media, I feel like this is a really big challenge, and we try to teach our girls how best to utilize social media. They say that once you post something on social media, it's there forever. Even if you delete it, it's been shared across multiple platforms. You can go viral in 2.5 seconds. So we try to make them really aware of the power of social media and how to really put yourself forth in the best manner that you can. Because you're young now. Your selfies look great right now, but are they really going to age that well in 3, 4, 5 years when you're looking for employment or whatever? Because employers do sometimes go through your social media. So that's really one aspect that we try to instill in them as well. And as Major said, yes, the clubs that we had and also the talks that we usually have with the girls. I think the great thing that we have going for us at Response Network is we really try to come to the girls almost as friends and mentors instead of as, quote unquote adults.
Yeah.
Because it goes in one ear and out the other if you just approach them in an authoritative manner. So I think the friendly yet somehow not necessarily strict, but that type of atmosphere that we create really creates a platform for them to feel free and be open to tell us what they're going through. And we've had instances where children couldn't or feared to tell their parents something, and they felt comfortable to come to us and explain the things that they were going through, and there were some really heavy things that they were going through. So I think as an organization, we really do try to just create that bond with our children who are on our sponsorship program so that we can nurture them and try to form them or mold them into the great young ladies that most of them that we've already seen have turned out to be. Also, a key point that Major had said is the aspect of responsibility. I feel girls or young women these days, they lack ownership of their lives, if I can put it that way. You just go from one thing to the other without having a real direction in life. You go to school because you're supposed to go to school, but you're not even going to school to achieve something. You're doing it because it's just something you were told you have to do. And you take it and it's become almost like a norm to fail grade 12. Because there's always GCE, you can always rewrite, you can always, And I feel like that's a dangerous thing to get into, because I feel like when we were growing up, you needed to already know what you wanted to do. High school came.
That's true.
You already needed, by grade 10, you're almost filling out the applications for college, and you needed to have a concrete direction. But I feel like the youth these days, we are lacking that ownership of our lives. It seems as though our young girls are living to perhaps flex on social media. Flex culture is running rampant, and social media has proven to be a lucrative business for some. And that could be nurtured. there's a way that you can nurture the aspect of becoming perhaps an influencer or something for young girls. That is a valid career choice. But the fact that I feel like maybe they don't have the adequate options in order to explore such alternative career methods is something that we could also tackle as a society, because not everyone is going to grow up to be a teacher or a nurse or a doctor. I know our parents probably wish that I would have been a doctor. Sadly, I'm not.
Well, most parents, those are the professions that are usually spoken: doctor, lawyer,
engineer.
Those are accountants.
You're sort of nurtured to, and people, they might not have an interest in that.
Yeah.
So I think as parents or as mentors or just adults in society, I think we could broaden the career pool for our young girls, and that's something that I feel we'll be looking more into this year, Major. We are looking into really cementing these clubs in schools so that we can address these issues of career paths and whatnot, so that we can see what you are good at, because that's the number one thing. If you do something that you're good at, you're automatically going to love your job. But if you do something that because my dad said accounting, you probably won't even finish school. You'll be a first-year dropout, and who wants that? So that's one aspect that we're tackling as well, just cementing groups, because peer-to-peer mentorship is also important. It allows you to interact with your fellow grade 8 student, your fellow grade 11, 12 student, and you can come together and really give each other advice that you probably couldn't get or relate to from someone older. I mean, they probably think I'm older. I'm only 30, but they'll just be like, what do you know, really? Exactly, like you are like from BC days.
Yeah.
So they probably won't get it, but I feel like these clubs will definitely be like a platform for them to really come together and also keep them away from vices. They probably won't have all that time to interact with boys and do this and that and the third. So I think that would be a good thing for us to get into.
All right. And Major, before you come in, he actually spoke about piratas.
Yes.
And it's like these days it's something that is common amongst the girls. They do it without even caring about anything and whatnot. But then the thing is here, these elderly people, they know that what they are doing is wrong. And it's very funny how very few of them are actually brought to book, are taken to the police station. Why is it like that?
Right. Major?
Okay. I think like I put it, to say it's very difficult for most families to take or to bring to book such culprits, because then it's all about the money gains. And then one thing that they also don't appreciate very much is the gains that come with following up such culprits with the law, because they are not aware. So if I settle a matter out of court, probably I'll pay less. But if I'm to settle it through the courts, someone will have to pay more. And so what families tend to do then is they'll make it family business. And in return, there are very few cases that are reported ever. Because consider it like one of those incidences or one of those things that happens. Let's say maybe the uncle abuses the niece.
Yeah.
It will never go anywhere. It will just die as a family matter. Maybe because the uncle is the one that helps us buy a bag of meal by the month end. And so if we put our uncle in jail, how are we going to fend for ourselves? How are we going to buy that bag of meal? But then that goes with very little or no concern at all towards the traumatic experience that the child might be going through at that very moment, because then the child is traumatized, and research shows that when a child is traumatized, it takes them on average 17 years before they can begin to talk about it. And that is way too long a period for someone to be harboring that pain and that abuse in them. So this is where at times we find girls or young women becoming very violent towards the opposite sex because of that traumatic experience that they've had. And so they make others become victims by virtue or by way of maybe creating or building walls around them. And as they are building walls around them, then the other person is violated. So there is that. Otherwise, it's an issue of what do we have to gain? What can we gain? We take them to the police. Now what? And I think, like, when you look at the follow-up systems that we have, I think as a nation, when it comes to these matters, I don't know how or if anything has changed as yet in the police section of when it comes to maybe follow-ups on people or offenders. But there was this tendency where you report a matter and then, yes, they'll give the person the call out.
Yeah.
And then when the person changes location, they go out of Livingstone, for example, they go to Luapula. Then I lose out. There will be no one to follow up on whatever. And so what will I gain? And so before I can even scare them away through the police, if I can reach a consensus for them to give me 1,000 kwacha and then they pay the 1,000 kwacha, that's better than going to the police, being told pay 8,000 kwacha, and then the person actually runs away with the crime and goes and settles in another place. So there are a whole lot of ideas behind it. But reporting, we have to also enhance it. Yeah, I feel we have to enhance and make it easy for people to report. There are safety channels that children can use to report on. I think Childline Helpline has been very helpful in in that respect. They've done tremendously well. It is a good move, though. When the police get involved, you know, to say it's going to be almost an entire family that will be involved now at that level. So, yeah, this is where at times families will also look at their name. Yes, we would love to say we've moved, but people will look at the name. Oh, there will be those issues. And so then we tend to fail the young child, and we let the abuse go just like that, and we make it part of us. We're like, no, you heal, you know, it's just time. Yeah. And it's interesting. But yeah, I think those are some of the things that cause us not to actually report these cases. Then on the other hand, I think when it comes to information, also maybe the legal information, when we talk human rights and we talk these rights and child protection issues, we sound as if we are speaking outside the law when we are actually in the law. Because Zambia signed up to the child protection, or the Convention of Child Protection with the United Nations, or the convention, on 30th September of 1990. And they were only consented to in December of 1991. And so we agreed, there are a number of rights that we agreed to do and to follow as a nation. We agreed to follow those rights. And so in 2007, by the time that the police were even formulating the child protection unit in the police force, or in the police service, yes, now it's called service, in the police service, those things that we had agreed to do at the convention were now brought into light. And this is where many times when we say the child should be freely to talk about these issues with the parents, we sound as if, you know what, you're just being so much undiplomatic, when actually we are saying things as they should be. Yeah, because there's a way a child will look at you if they are freely opening up to you as a parent. Yeah, but then most parents, the opinions of the child don't matter. It's daddy speaks.
Whatever daddy says, it goes.
That's all.
That's all that matters.
If I tell you that on Christmas Day you are eating a rabbit, you eat a rabbit.
That's what you will eat. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Makaza, you actually mentioned something about, you having clubs in schools. Which are some of the schools here in Livingstone that you work with?
Okay.
I'll let Major take this up as the assistant sponsorship officer.
Okay.
He's the man on the ground with it.
All right. Yes. Major, please.
Yeah. So we have Ngwenya.
Okay.
Now this year we are expanding. We are going to St. Mary's. We want to do Linda High School beginning term 2. David Livingstone. We want a conversation to go to Mulwani, Nakatindi, St. Peter's, and a few other schools, of course. But the core, I think, of the whole club setup in the schools is to just keep the children in schools engaged and focused on why they are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think our communications officer put it to say, many children go to school and they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
They just go to school for the sake of, I have to go to school. Otherwise, if you leave it up to them, they will even prefer sleeping on the couch every day and watching a movie or following someone on Facebook the whole day. So that's something that we want to take out there. And this is a conversation that we hope that within maybe a period of 6 months, we should be able to see a change in the mindset and attitudes of those that we are reaching out to. Because the goal is to get them to pay attention to exam results. Yeah. It's good. It's good for them. I think a sentence that I've always carried with me is, "You are a government property if you're performing better."
Okay.
Yes. That's just how it is. Government doesn't pick the failures. Government picks the cream.
Yeah.
So if you're performing better, you're a government property. If you're not performing any better, you're a failure. Not even government will be able to support you.
Not even private.
No private, no organization, nobody will come to your aid. Perform better, and you attract all the investments and all the right people that you need to run with your dream. And so that's something that we can put out there and float to the child to say, look, yes, this year government has said they've paid, it's free education. Now make the most out of it. You don't need to be worrying about who is paying what or who is going to chase me out of class the next day. You now have a responsibility. The mantle or the baton has been passed on to you. Because maybe last year they were thinking, Wazani Pisha ko school, but this time there is
nothing like
so
that.
So if there is nothing like, I'm going to be chased the following day, then what is stopping them from concentrating and getting the grades that they need?
The piratas.
Yeah, because on the other hand also, look at the bursary schemes. Bursary schemes, a lot of people will say, no, they favor the rich. No, it's not about the rich. It's about the grades. And of course, for you to be picked on a bursary scheme, this means your grades are competitive. Yeah. And so most of them will tell you, no, I want to be sponsored or I want a bursary scheme at university level. But for you to get that bursary scheme, it's not just going to come because maybe you are coming from a less privileged home. That's not a qualification. The qualification is be less privileged and have the great result or have the good result. The two. So being poverty stricken is no longer a qualification for you to get a bursary. This is where it's important. Because if the child can begin to understand from school to say, look, I need to get the grades for me to be able to get onto that scheme that government is offering, then we'll change how the results come out. I think when we hear results being announced, you get 100% at grade 7 pass rate, and you're like, wow, I'm waiting for the grade 12, and you get 53% at grade 12, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. All right, 11:53 is the time now, and so I will ask you this last question before you give your closing remarks. What message needs to be delivered to young girls to actually ensure that they keep themselves safe? Like you talked about them being responsibility. What do they need to do? What does this responsibility come with?
Responsibility. I think what it comes with most importantly is self. Being self-driven. If I pay attention to myself and if I love myself enough, believe me, I'll not do anything that might end up getting me into a situation that might prove to be damaging to me. Responsibility is about me understanding to say, whatever it is that I would want to be tomorrow, I begin to work it today. How many young people or how many young girls actually know to say, for me, if I'm aiming, for example, to be a doctor, I can begin to shape that doctor in me today. Many of them will just say, probably when I go to college, that's when I can become that doctor. But then responsibilities will help us to not just create a sponge where we are busy defending ourselves, but rather we'll be able to take criticisms. When positive criticism comes, it builds us. For me, I've always believed one thing: there are no losses to life. There are no there's nothing such as failure to life. There are only lessons. So if I respect myself and I'm responsible for me, irrespective of how a particular thing comes out or how something is said to me, I'll be responsible enough to appreciate the lesson that has come with the criticism, and maybe the positive remark that has been made by someone. But more importantly, we want the children to also understand to say, look, these laws or these rights that you have, that have been given or have been taught to you, for each one of them, no one will protect them better than you yourself. And so if they put themselves in awkward situations, for example, where I'm hanging out with a pirata, then they have to understand to say their responsibility is first of all towards themselves. Before they begin to look at the gains, the money, it's first of all supposed to bring to them the consciousness to say, is this going to build me or it's not going to build me? I think that's what responsibility is about. What is my contribution towards achieving this? What is my contribution? I think society would be better if young girls can understand responsibilities. Even young boys. If young boys understand responsibilities, society will be better. Yeah. And so we have that task. Teach the children rights, teach them responsibilities of those rights and what they need to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Makazo, under a minute, your closing remarks.
My closing remark, Major, thank you very much for leaving me a minute. I so much appreciate it. My closing remarks, really quickly, I just want to urge young ladies, young women, my girls out there, try to be more of a listening ear than an open mouth.
Yeah.
It's very easy to take for granted the advice you get on a daily basis, but this advice is coming from people who have been through it or have seen things worse than you can possibly imagine. So yes, it seems fun right now, but friends come and go and boys come and go, but your future is is something that only you can guarantee.
Exactly.
So you just need to, as Major has reiterated and reiterated, it all comes down to responsibility.
Yeah.
You have a responsibility to yourself to be better than your circumstances. You have a responsibility to yourself to be better than the people who came before you. Because your guardians, your parents, whoever is standing behind you, they started from somewhere also, and they want to push you to a place where you'll be far better off than they were. So if you are just kept in the here and the now of the outings and the selfies and the boys and the flex, I feel like our generation, our upcoming generation, is in deep trouble right
Big
now.
trouble.
So yes, just be more of a listening ear. Take advice to heart, and they're not jealous of you. They just know better.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
I'd say what they see when they're standing, we see it when we're seated, right? Is that how the saying goes?
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. All right, Major Makazo, thank you so much for making an appearance on Power FM.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
us.
for having
Yeah,
us.
I had such a great time talking to you, and I do hope you have a lovely day.
You too.
You too.
All right, thank you. That was Mr. Major Bota as well as Miss Makazo Mangala, all from Response Network, which is an on Power Talk.